What's up, fish tank people? FIshtankTV.com. Dustin's Fish Tanks. Dustin Pond, bringing you a little bit of garden pond action. How's everybody doing? I hope you're doing well. So today I want to do a recap of how we have gone into year 2 with this garden pond. Had an absolute blast with it. I want to give you an update on some of the plants, some of the fish, and tell you about one of the predators that got one of my fish. Let me start by saying this garden pond is by far and away one of the coolest things I've ever had involving water. I'm an Aquarius, and that's a big statement, not to mention all the fish tanks. The plants are always doing something. The fish are my buddies. They're always up greeting me. When I had knee surgery a while back, I basically made the porch my room to my wife's liking. I slept on this couch. This is where I chill out. A perfect morning for me consists of my children being off school, my wife being at work, and me sitting here in this spot right here, either writing in my notebook or typing a video script, which is exactly where this video was crafted. To recap, this pond was done exclusively with the Aquascape concept in mind. It has both an Aquascape pump, Aquascape simmer basket, and all kinds of Aquascape jazz. More on that stuff in a second. I've never metered this pond to measure how many gallons it is, but Jeff and Greg estimate it's around 2,000 gallons, for which the amount of total fish I'm actually keeping in here versus how big these fish actually get is actually a pretty small pond. This has been referenced a few times. One thing that everyone always says when they have a garden pond is they wish they would have made it bigger. It will do for now. Koi purists will say, and probably right, that the rock bottom is no good. Yes, it certainly removes some of the water volume and I guess could potentially hurt the fish, but I think it looks cool. One of the things you can see in this pond is actually how deep it is. When I stand in it, it's about 3 feet deep in the center. The fish cave goes back to the point where I almost can't reach the back of it. I've actually been in this pond and used my long, lanky gringo arms trying to reach the back of it, and I couldn't. More on the fish cave here in just a minute. Let's talk about the plants. Okay, about 90% of the plants in here are going to stay. The exception, of course, are these two monsters. These are actually coming out. Now, each year I take these two things into the greenhouse around mid-October. It actually kind of sucks because for a few weeks I leave them full grown in the greenhouse where they're in the way. I'll probably be taking one of the two of them to the aquatic experience with me again. After the show, I hack them down so they aren't as tall and don't bother me on my drive home. Random note, check out this monster. She came out of nowhere. Last year it was super small. It's some kind of hibiscus, I'm assuming, but if anyone knows the exact species, please drop me a note in the comments. Note, my wife said, "It's too tall, it needs to come down." Then Mother Nature got out her pimp hand and sent a hummingbird right up into her about 4 seconds after she said it. Sorry, honey, the flower stays tall. I want to talk about the maintenance and tell you all about some of the predator problems I've had in this koi pond. Okay, so the maintenance on this pond, and I would argue that any pond, is insanely easy. I mean, they're outside. How can you possibly make a mess? The biggest thing is this rock right here. This is how I gauge my water level. If it gets below this rock, I fill it up. Now, kids, moms, dads, children, don't try this at home. When I do just little top-offs in here, I do not use dechlorinator. My thinking is if you're not adding more than 5% to the volume of water in the pond, you don't have to worry about dechlorinator. Note, the biggest thing here, and this is how you will kill your fish, is do not leave the water running. Don't go running off and messing with your kids or leave outside. When you leave the chlorine running for a long time, that will certainly kill your fish. Even if you add dechlor and you leave it running, it'll still kill your fish. A note on this, I watched my personal koi sensei, Master Art from Western Carolina Waterscapes, take a garden hose with no dechlorinator and start filling a pond with fish more than my most recent 2 cars combined. Again, everyone's water is different. Proceed at your own risk. One thing to note, now when I do water changes, that's different, not just a top off. When I do water changes, I always add dechlor. Speaking of water changes, I believe that water changes are of critical importance to a garden pond. Now, one could argue that a good hard rain takes some of the urgency off a water change, and while I'm sure good rain certainly helps, Lord only knows what's actually coming in with that water. With this pond, I am fortunate enough to actually have it sit above the average height. Okay, so this pond sits behind my retaining wall, which gives me enough of a drop off to actually run a siphon right up out of it. No pump is required. This is nice because I don't have to lug some pump and connect it. I just go and grab some PVC I have and I throw it up over the hole like this. I do not use any kind of attachment on the end as the fish are big enough and I'm not really worried about them getting sucked in. Typically when I'm in and messing around in the pond, they hide pretty quickly. Should something happen to them, I am always close by in the yard doing something on my never-ending honey-do list. Guys, you know what I'm talking about? When I do water changes, I take the water level down about 3 inches or so. I feel the fish could handle a bit more water coming out of the tap, but it's slightly colder than what I have in the pond, so why risk it? The fish are a decent size now, so I'm not really too worried about temperatures, but again, these are my babies. I don't want to mess with them. I'd like to make a note on the stocking levels in this pond. Now, I have to admit, I got a bit greedy with my first year with this pond, and perhaps I slightly overstocked it. Now, ultimately, as you know, these fish are going to get way too big to house them in here as they are together if they were all full size. Hindsight, of course, is always 20/20, and if I could do it again, I would have made this pond about 3 times as deep. This would give me way more water volume and help me out with another thing, predators.
There's my pond, and you can see my fish yesterday were super duper skittish when I came home because my neighbor sent me this picture of a heron in my yard. Everybody's hiding right now. I've been here. You can see that there was, you can't really see it that well because I washed it off. There was a big pile of bird poop right there. Some bird poop right there. A worthless dog right there. And then a heron just flew past my face a minute ago. I was walking back from the greenhouse. Like almost hit me. Just chilling. Waiting to eat my fish.
All right, so before everybody gets their panties in a bunch about the blue heron, let me just make a couple things clear. When I was a little kid, I used to go with Grandpa Wonderlick out to East Lake. He owned a house on the Chagrin River. We used to paddle back in canoe, and I used to check out blue herons. As part of my love for nature was spawned from that. I also like to go down to Hilton Head with my mother to her place where we check out blue herons, which are all over the place down there. And quite frankly, if I was a blue heron and I was flying over top of this pond, I would sit my lanky, tall, blue ass down and tear out a couple of fish myself. However, that doesn't mean that I'm happy that my little Ogon got eaten by a blue heron. A couple things to note to help you all if you ever do have a blue heron around. I do recommend you build your pond as close to the house as possible. It does seem to help. However, one was super close by me and actually didn't seem to mind that I was even in the greenhouse when it came up to my house. Nevertheless, the closer your pond is to the house, the more you'll enjoy it and the less chance you'll have of heron predators. I also do recommend you use fishing line over across the pond. This seems to keep them naturally afraid of it. However, I had the fishing line all over the place and the heron still swooped down. People recommend putting a bald eagle statue somewhere around. I think that's a good move. I think you got to move it. People also say they are also solo predators, so they do not like to see other herons around. You can get a fake heron and click the links around here to see my girl Jane. She keeps her statue Bob of a fake heron that seems to keep predators away. She's had her pond for over 10 years without losing any. Nevertheless, your boy did lose one of his favorite little golden Ogons. I can't blame the heron though. It's a bright gold fish. It was probably great and probably tasty. Get a deep cave, folks. Get a deep fish cave. Do me a favor, drop me a comment on what you think about this garden pond. Let me know how I should redo this back here, because one of these days these fish are going to get too big and I'm going to have to make it a little bit bigger. Everybody have a fabulous freaking week and tank on. Later.